Coming up on The Returned.
My soul has popped out of my body. Immediately, I was lifted up. It was like just going up, 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 up. I managed to look back at my body. I saw how I was laying there on the bed. I was a dead woman.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. Today, we sit with NG Tran. Is that correct? NG Tran. A near-death experiencer whose life was forever changed after a catastrophic physical collapse while completely alone in France. Welcome, Van, to The Returned.
Thank you so much, MJ. I appreciate you having me here.
You're very welcome. Oh my goodness, Van. There I go. Van, before we get to the heart of our conversation, I always like to ground the audience in who you were before your experience. So, what was life like for you before the turning point? And did religion or spirituality play a role in your upbringing or in your life at that time?
Mm-hmm. So just quickly, I was born in Vietnam. I grew up in the Czech Republic. I had a pretty loving family. Both of my parents are together till today. I have an older sister, a younger brother. I grew up, I would say, agnostic. So we never talked about religion. It was never pushed on me. So in my 20s, just like everybody else, I went to study. I got a degree in computer science and was very much into technology. And then I had a relationship, and then things just kind of derailed a little bit. And then actually in my 30s, early 30s, that's when I started to have way too many questions about life and consciousness and all of that. And right before the NDE, I found myself in Basel. So in Basel, there was a huge conference. At least for me, it was huge, like 600 people in one room with one teacher. And I was just like everybody else, just having a lot of questions and wanting to be picked by the teacher and maybe get the answers to how to fix my life. So that really led me to the NDE because during that conference, unfortunately, I got no answers, so no clarity on what would happen next. And so I booked a one-way ticket to France, to the city of Reims. I've never been in France at that time, never been to that city, so you can imagine it's going to get pretty scary.
Only I can. I think that understanding that part of your life does help us understand the magnitude of what happens next. How do you feel about transitioning us into the actual experience itself?
Absolutely, I can do that. So here I was in France. Now I have, traveled the world and lived in many places. So this kind of adventure was like not something new for me. So it was okay. And I chose France because it was going west. And you know, I've returned from living in Asia for the past 7 years and now I'm back in Europe and I didn't really want to go back home yet. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go west and go to France. So it was very easy. I found my Airbnb. It was like booked for 1 month. So I come in, it was self check-in, I remember. It was like after the height of the pandemic. So, and it was perfect for me because at that time I was like, I have enough of people. Like, I just want to be isolated and I don't want anyone to know where I am. Um, and so I go into the apartment, everything is fine. I had like one big luggage and that was it. And then all of a sudden I felt this knot in my stomach. And on one hand, my energy was going down, 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 down. And I knew that something was wrong physically. So I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit, like I had to immediately lay down. So I was very weak. At the same time, I felt all the symptoms of COVID creeping up. So it's like the lungs was on fire, my throat was on fire. It was very hard to breathe. So I had to lay down immediately. But the second thing that was even more scary than that, right, having COVID, was how did I get myself to this point? I'm telling myself I have a family, I have my inner circle, I have people that care about me, but I was pushing them away. I really believed that, oh, if I isolate myself, somehow that's the answer. Like that was the state of mind I was in at that time. So, this novelty of like new country, new city was like, it just went out of the window completely. And here I am. I know no one here. I have an emergency situation. I have no idea what to do. And here I was on the bed, just thinking, yeah, I think I'm gonna die. And so as I lay down, thankfully though, one person managed to reach out to me before I would completely give up. So it was someone that I met in Basel, and this person was very kind to just check in on me. So just asking me questions like, where are you? How are you doing? What's going on? And I remember, just telling him like 3 words: Reims, Champagne City, France. And that was it. And I just closed the Wi-Fi and I had just completely feeling depleted, out of energy. And I just pushed my phone away. And so I find myself drifting off. And then I wake up to a loud bang. And it was so loud, it was as though the bomb has gone off. And I wake up and I'm like, what is that? Like, is that my neighbor upstairs? Is that from the street? I have no idea. But then I realized that my soul has popped out of my body. And so I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, what is going on? And with that realization that my soul has popped out of my body, immediately I was lifted up. It was like just going up, 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 as though gravity had nothing on me. And I managed to look back at my body and I saw how I was laying there on the bed. And it was something I didn't want to see because obviously I was looking like, a dead woman, let's say, first of all. And then secondly, I could see myself as though I had X-ray vision. So I could see the inside of me and I could see how inflamed I was and also how enlarged all the organs were. So with this, I just knew that this is serious, that at any moment I might have to completely exit, or if I come back, I would have to fight for my life. And with this kind of knowing in the background, and in this like laying down position and rising up, that would be this sort of movement that happens throughout the NDE. Just continue to get away from that woman laying down there in the bed. And so as I rise up, I'm still here on Earth, right, in the 3D plane. But then at some point, I feel like I'm hitting something. It was like I'm hitting a threshold. And then more information opens up to me. So this was like a layer of information stacked on top of the 3D dimension of the 3D, like of Earth. So that's why I call it the fourth dimension, just the next thing. So in the fourth dimension, I had my life review. So here I saw my book. It was like I had this book of my life. And on one hand, it was like I just had a glimpse at that. But then it was like my life was flashing before my eyes. It was like it was went really fast. And under 1 second, I understood everything. But also I had full control over this book. Like I could go forward, I could go backwards, I could focus on any moment. And actually there were like moments that kind of like it was shining a little bit more than others, which made me want to like look at that and just zoom in and relive that experience. And I did that. I played around here. And actually the moments that were kind of shining brighter, it was more of the bad moments in my life. You know, the moments that are unresolved, the moments that I felt victim to the situation, or the moments that I've made mistakes as well. So I could relive these moments. And I have to tell you that I was not a big fan of my life review, to be honest. And, you know, today, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I like to say there's no such thing as a failure, because eventually, you know, that, let's say, failure will lead you to the finishing line. But at that time, when I was looking through my life review, I was sure, like, man, you failed. You completely failed the life contract that you basically agreed on upon coming here on Earth. And life contract for me is being with the right people at the right place and the right time. And I felt like, you know, up until that point, my life felt more like a caricature of what it was supposed to be. And I was more focusing on being performative and, you know, achieving certain things that would make me look good on paper. But beneath that was a girl that was very broken. Like it was like I had pieces everywhere that was not really all together. So with that feeling, again, I find myself in this like sleeping position, rising up, rising up, rising up. And then I hit another threshold. And now I find myself in the fifth dimension. So here, again, more like another layer was stacked on top of that. So it's like, just imagine more information, right? So in the fifth dimension, I saw my tree of life. So not only the life review, which is just like everything that happened, now I see possibilities and timelines. So here I could zoom in to any moment in my life and then see the what if, right? It's like, okay, you chose that, but what if you chose the other way? And first of all, for me, this was absolutely stunning to see because the computation level of this, it's so detailed and it was like branches of a tree. That's why I call it the tree of life. And me being the technology girl and, always like very much into computers, like more into computers than into social aspects of life, I was like, whoa, we cannot have this on Earth. Like, that's just not possible. But here, yes. And I was playing around and kind of shy, but like looking around, like kind of curious. And I remember looking into one of those like crucial moments in my life. It was 2016. And that's when like everything was lining up for me to make the next big move. So at that point, I would have graduated. I would have had a pretty good career so far, at 26. And then I had a 6-year relationship. Um, and it was like the last month, it was like only 1 month left before, everything is like really like finalized with my job, with my computer science degree. And also, I got naturalized in the Czech Republic because I grew up there. I lived there for 15 years. So it's like, just please 1 more month and all the papers would come in, and I would be able to do the next move, right? So 1 month before that, my now ex-partner, it was my understanding that we wanted the same thing, that at one point we would move together to the USA, at least find a way, right? I mean, we were both working for tech companies, so definitely that was the possibility. But he just overnight has told me, well, then I talked to my company and they are transferring me to Singapore. And so he did. He literally just, it was very quick. I mean, he was like just flying to Singapore. And yeah, I was just there in the apartment that we still have the contract. And it was like, I'm waiting for my papers. And so it was amidst this chaos, I would say, that I really didn't know what to do at that time. I think I was way too young. And, many times in my life, I kind of blame myself for choosing the wrong thing. But in the end, I chose to follow my partner to Singapore, knowing that that is not my path. That is not what I agreed on coming here on Earth. And during that time, it was again this knot in the stomach, like the same feeling that I had like prior to having this NDE, and everything just went downhill from there. And so that was shown to me in this tree of life that yes, indeed, you made the wrong choice. And that was very sad for me because I like to say I didn't need this NDE to know that that was the moment that I didn't choose to follow my heart and follow my path. And because of that, everything just went downhill from there. So in this tree of life, on one hand, I saw the mistakes that I've made. On another hand, it was very impressive, obviously, because I could see, possibilities and timelines, though I didn't want to look at the fruits of the tree, let's say, and see like, okay, so maybe how Van is gonna like how Van's life is going to be when she's like 80 or 90, like I felt I had this feeling of that is going to come, and life is a progress. So don't like, jump before you can walk, let's say. So with that feeling, again, I find myself in this, sleeping position, hands on my chest, lifted up, lift, like lift, rising up again. And now I hit another threshold, and it is the 6th dimension. And if the previous dimensions were impressive, now it becomes grand. This was like, it was like overwhelming amount of information would appear in front of me. And also, this is the place where I felt unconditional love. Never felt that before in my life. I felt like my life was always very conditional. But here it was as though I was taking the warmest bath I've ever taken. It was like being hugged, by the creator itself. And so here in the sixth dimension, I like to describe it as swimming in the hearts and in the minds of all of us, of 8 billion human beings on Earth. Like, it really felt like that because, well, first of all, I could see myself, but not as this, like dense body, like the human that we are. But I saw myself as light, as a being of light, and that I was made of qualities of consciousness. And it was shining with its own color and shades and hues. And, I just thought to myself, like, this is the place where I cannot lie to myself and no one can. Because when you get here, you'll see yourself for who you really are, which is something spectacular. And not only that I saw myself, I saw everyone else. It was as though I saw 8 billion souls here on Earth, and everyone was shining bright, with their own qualities of consciousness, with their own hues and colors and shade. And I like to say that there was no carbon copy of anything. Like, every soul, 100% was unique. And that was just absolutely stunning, to just be in that place, but also seeing how, like, interconnected everything was. And it was as though we were like a mesh, like a living, breathing mesh that really cared about everyone. And, prior to that moment, there were a lot of times in my life where I felt like I was insignificant. Like, I was so small and nobody cares. But there, the truth was shown to me, which is that no one is insignificant. That anything that I do would have a ripple effect on other people, and everything that you do would affect me. So there's no way that anyone is isolated, just like my thought of like coming to France. I'm just going to be in my own bubble. That's just not possible. So I think this sixth dimension was something that it was like magic to me, because prior to coming here, with the conference, I just, like, my mind was like running like crazy because I had question. And here in the sixth dimension, it was like zip, like, there's no talking, man, because you have no questions. And it was true. Like, I felt like somehow I had no questions, though I didn't know, like, I couldn't mentally conceptualize what the answer was. But I felt it in my heart that something was lifted up. And yeah, I think if there is such a thing as ultimate beauty and intelligence and love, this is the place. And I have to tell you that this place was highly symbolic. So yeah, the sense of feel for me was just off the roof. And, even if I had thoughts, it was like background music, So it took me a long time to actually, like, even mentally conceptualize all of this that I'm telling you about the colors and the hues and the mesh. But when I was there, it was just what was, and it was shown to me to see it. And I think it was this dimension that I think whatever I needed, it gave it to me, you know, and because of that, I felt really light. And then a portal shows up to me. It was like a portal just offers to me. It was right there. And I knew that if I step into this portal, well, it's going to be a rabbit hole. And it, it will be, I'll tell you that. But there was no fear. Like in this place, there was no pain. There was no fear. It was blissful, but it was also very natural because I felt all right, okay, portal, great. Yeah, I'm jumping in. That's how I felt. I felt very excited for whatever that was offered to me. And so when I jump into this portal, I would find myself in the middle of that experience that they would offer to me. So it wasn't like I was watching a screen or watching a movie. Now, scenes of the future would be shown to me, but it was like VR. So yeah, it was like I was right there and I could feel everything. I could sense everything. And these scenes would be shown to me in a way that it's quite short. It's short, it's to the point, and I can share with you, I think the two most important ones that I saw that really like inspired me so much, after my NDE. So one of them is I found myself in a spheric vehicle. So I can tell you up until that point, I've never been in any spheric vehicle before. And I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And so it was a spaceship. And I was inside the spaceship. And on one hand, it was like, well, like there's a single bed, there's a shower, there's a workstation, there's a window. So it's like, I feel like I am at home, you know? On the other hand, again, like this is very foreign to me because I was never into spaceships, like any of that. So those were the two feelings that I had. Um, but yeah, it was very vivid. So even like I could feel the vibrations beneath my feet, which I could tell like, okay, this is the propulsion thing, right? And so I look out the window on the left and I see something even more bizarre. So this is what I call mothership. So mothership is a city-sized structure. It looked, oh my God, I don't know how to explain that. It's like, I mean, it's a city, but it's so bizarre. And it was like floating on, orbiting around Earth. And it was definitely organic. And by that, I mean, I saw floors, I saw skyscrapers, I saw buildings, I saw people, I saw plants, trees. So it was a bit like this urban jungle architecture. And it was all like transparent from the outside, so I could see that. And I could see different types of spacecrafts coming in and coming out. So one of them is like a triangular pyramid kind of spacecraft. I call it cargo because it reminds me of like a truck, which would just like, take heavy load in and out of Earth. And then the other one is a cigar shaped spacecraft. I called it the horse. And so those were the spacecrafts that I saw. And I think here I was really, it was like, it started to be like a rabbit hole for me because, yeah, at that time, I've never seen like a single episode of Star Wars or Star Trek. So you can imagine like how in awe I was like, wait a minute, like, why are they showing this to me? But I was like trusting, right? Like what would come out of all of this. And so I would find myself in the next scene, and this would be the last scene. So here I would have landed on Earth, and it's me, myself, and I in nature. And it was somewhere in Europe, it seems like. Somewhere in Europe. It was spring weather. It was just so pleasant. And I remember, looking over my shoulder and I see the river. So I was like, water, yeah, life. And then I look with the corner of my right eye and I see the vehicle I was just in. And I just said to myself, like, that's the one, that's the one, that's the one. I was just in there. Though it was half open, it was hovering above the ground, and it was coated with this like reflective material. So I was even thinking like, well, if it wasn't half open, I couldn't tell it was there. So that's the spacecraft. But then I was really sort of immersed in the peace of all of this. And I looked down at my feet. It was the greenest grass I've ever seen in my life. And I hear the birds chirping. And I closed my eyes and I said, this is the most peaceful moment I've ever had in my entire existence. And with that feeling that I had in my chest, in my heart, I tunneled back into my body like somebody kicked my ass back there. It was so fast. And here we go. I am back in my COVID body and very painful, I have to tell you. That contrast, between just whatever I saw and then going back to the human body. So I was in pain. I opened my eyes. It was very dark. It's like I look out the window. It was like, yeah, 5 p.m. Like the street lights were not on. And so here I was in this like just darkness. And I was like, well, that's interesting. But then I had this thought, which was that, yeah, you are in pain, but the worst is over and you are going to recover really, really well. And yeah, that's true because though I booked 1 month at this Airbnb, on the 5th day, I actually contacted the kind person that was in Basel and checking in on me and he helped me to get back to Basel. So, I would go to the hospital and then also recover. And yeah, so I left on the 6th day. So only 6 days in Reims. And then I've gone back to Basel and recover. And that was, something that I could never forget. At the same time, I never told anyone up till this year.
Wow. What an experience you had. Unforgettable, unbelievable. Honestly, it is so detailed. Now, before I get into all the questions, I'm wondering, why did it take you so long to share your story?
So yes, it has been 4 years since the NDE. I will tell you this. During the NDE, it felt like I was spiritually reborn. Something healed in me. I couldn't mentally conceptualize, like, what did they do? And they didn't even tell me the answers. But that's how I felt. Like, maybe the pieces that were broken got back together. But immediately as I got back to my body, went back to Basel, I knew like there was like this inner voice that was like in my ear, like an earworm. And it said, finish your old life. On repeat, finish your old life, finish your old life, finish your old life. So this is really how I can describe this as. It's like this. The experience itself, it's life-changing. But after that, I still had to walk the walk. I still had relationships. I still had networks. I still have my family. I still have to make decisions on a daily basis and then, walk from there and see where it leads me. And I'll tell you that actually those 4 years after the NDE, it was not easy at all. I almost got into another NDE, and then also at one point when I almost finished, almost like almost finishing my old life contract, I I had a thought of like, I'm giving up. So there were a lot of things happening, during these 4 years. But now, as I'm sitting here today talking to you, 2026, I can tell you that I feel like I've walked the walk. And now, not only that I am spiritually reborn, but Van, as the character in this play, has has done what she agreed to come here to do. And I feel like I'm having a second chance in life.
It's bittersweet, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm wondering why this experience happened to you, aside from the obvious, aside from the fact that, you got COVID, you got sick, you died, all of this. But why do you think you were taken to such high dimensions, jumping through a portal and learning everything? What did that show you, and what did you learn about who you were?
I think I had a pretty rough life. And that, not only that, but how I dealt with that. So I'm not gonna lie, like my 20s, it was very hard. And I had to learn to fight through my life, and in a way, certain like certain part of my personality, which, like sometimes I'm very stubborn, like sometimes I can be even like immature. It does lead me to this, this point with COVID. Definitely, I do not feel like that was just, oh, it's just an accident that Van got COVID. But it was like a turning point. Like, it was really meant to happen. I would say this. I want to go back to the life contract because since very young age, I felt like I knew that this life was not just like no purpose, you can do whatever you want, and it's just all about pleasure. I knew that I had to be with the right people at the right place at the right time. And it felt like I had like a magnet inside my chest, and it would always like tell me like yes and no, yes and no, and that I would have to continue to move around so I cannot just be in one place. Um, but then I think at one point I got really lost. And the NDE was really, there is such a thing as, my higher self, but also like some sort of a committee, out there. I think whatever happened to me, it was really meant to happen to me to steer me back to my mission in life. And so the visions of the future that they showed me, it took me a long time to even understand like what is that supposed to be? Because of course, with my background in technology, computer science, I was always into that. But spaceships or physics and crazy stuff, I'm like, it's so left field for me. But I can tell you that I feel like as far as NDEs, I think the experiences that not only I go through, but many people go through is very personalized. It's personalized for that person because this algorithm, or you can even call it the creator or God, something bigger than we are. It knows exactly who you are, what you are capable of. And in a way, it has a way to like kick you back to life a little bit. So I like to think of it that way, that, yeah, Van kind of drifted off, um, how to say, derailed and got lost. Now we are going to make her go back to, finishing her mission.
So speaking of speaking of seeing those future events and possibilities, did what you saw leave you feeling hopeful about humanity's future or concerned about it, or even both?
I saw a lot of the technology side of things, and it really felt like, all of these futuristic things would happen during my lifetime. So during your lifetime, during our lifetime. So it felt like it was like really near. And I don't know, I'm just amazed by that, honestly. I don't know how that is going to play out. But if that is the future, then I am just absolutely excited for that. So my view is very positive. Um, yeah, my view is very positive.
You come back with any type of gifts, people call them, or in basically stronger intuition, or anything like that on your return?
I will say that when I was born, I already knew that there was something weird about me. And at this point, I truly believe that actually many people um, are born with, those extraordinary qualities or gifts. Um, so it's all around us. I'm sure you, me, like, many people have that. Um, but it was my experience as a child that whether it was, you know, having empathy or being intuitive or being introverted, it was something that got me, like I was a target for that. And also, growing up, I mean, like in my 20s, I felt like that was actually, like I was being used for that, let's say, maybe in relationships or things like that. I would say whoever you are, the way you are born, it's perfect. And I think the NDE might maybe enhance certain qualities. But I think my view here, I just want to make the emphasis on the fact that no one needs an NDE to actually have the gifts, because the gifts is yours and nobody can take that away from you. I do believe we all have that. I do know that there a lot of things happen on Earth to kind of, mask that, or kind of we get, what's the word, compromised a little bit, just a little bit. And then, eventually we'll remember the power that we have. So yeah, like my point of view is it's just that it is more important for everyone, regardless of whether they had the NDE or not, to remember the gifts they were, not that they were given, it's theirs. It's like, that's your light and no one can take away your light. Yeah.
Van, what did it feel like to look down on your own body?
It was very shocking at that time, honestly.
Like, did you feel like you still had a body?
It's very interesting. So during my NDE, it definitely didn't feel like I was just a blob, like floating around. Very much I felt like it was me. But it wasn't this like really dense human body. But yes, it felt like I have a body. But this body was much more maybe liquid. It's like liquid and light, but still it is the body. It's it's physical. It is the body.
I know this is a question that many viewers will ask. Do you believe that we choose aspects of our lives before we come here? And if so, what understanding did you gain about why we choose different or difficult experiences?
Hmm. I think many people come here and they choose this card of the struggle, right? It's through the struggling that the fighter is being born. And this is really my experience with, my friends and family and so many stories that I've heard. I think there's something about choosing the hard way that at the beginning it's going to be like, oh no, like this is way too much. But then the reward that comes after you learn to fight for your beliefs, you learn to fight for your purpose, you learn to fight for yourself, for your path, for your own light, that the fighter is absolutely born. And I think that is the best reward that any human being can go through in this life.
That gives me goosebumps. Really strong vibrations when I was listening to you say that. You know, Van, some would say that your experience is impossible, right? How did this affect your understanding of reality itself? And do you believe reality is maybe bigger than what our senses can even perceive?
Yes, I agree with that completely. I do view this dimension as real. So it is real in a sense that this is where all the possibilities collapse based on the decisions that we make. So the actions that we take, this is absolutely real. Though there's more to it. And when we are playing this game, in a way, our physical body as a vehicle, I believe it is limited in perceiving information for a good reason, so that we can actually focus on making things happen here in this dimension.
It reminds me, like when you were talking about the different levels that you were floating up to, the different dimensions, up to the sixth, it reminds me of when you said game, I wrote it down. Like it reminds me of a game. You know, you keep going up in levels, um, almost like. I'm sorry to say this, but living in a simulation. I know that a lot of people talk about this, but did your experience reveal anything about the structure of our reality?
Hmm. Yes, I did hear about, right, the theory that this is all a
Right?
simulation. I can tell you that if they mean by that this is not real, right? It's a simulation, therefore you can turn it on, you can turn it off, then that's not my view. My view is that the dimensions are a phenomenon. And I think I just really want to put this emphasis on the fact that this 3D, and I know, like prior to having the NDE, many times I was like, I'm giving up. I don't want to be here. Right? The 3D is so hard. But right now, I think after the NDE, my view just completely shifted, which is that the 3D is absolutely real and that we choose to come here. And yes, there's the veil of forgetting. We kind of don't really remember all the memories of the past, but we chose to come here, and it is important that we make things happen here. So I do not view it as a simulation, but I view it as a phenomenon, I would say, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
I'm wondering myself if there like how many dimensions, how many do you think there are? Do you think that there are more than 6?
Absolutely. For me, it was third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And I know this is not part of this conversation, but I did have a series of OBEs when I was 16. And actually at that time I got further. That's how I feel like, now that I can compare those two things. And there, from what I saw, and now how I can mentally conceptualize that, there is more beyond the six, to the point that you actually get to one dimension that is what I call base reality, which
Hmm.
is really like the most outer layer of the onion. It's like the Truman Show when he goes to the end and he's like knock knock, and it's like, yeah, you cannot get further than that. And that's how it appears to me, that the base reality is really the last layer of the onion. And you could either go back to earth again, you're going into the core, or you can jump into another construct which would have their own dimensions and creations.
So, having talked about that, where do you believe the other side is? Like, is it just in a different dimension? Is it just in like right here with us and we're not at the right frequency, so we can't really see it? Or is this really the levels that you need to go up?
I think the other side is right here. So if we look at the, if I, yeah, if I describe it as an onion, right? And let's say Earth plane is like right in the middle, and then we just have more layers of the onion. This is also the other side. And, when we're on the other side, Earth is also the other. Like, it's like,
Right.
it's all, I guess, like singularity, if that's the word. It's like it's all contained. And but yeah, that is a very good question, actually. I'm also curious, like what do you think, or what your audience have been thinking about all of this?
Well, based on just experience after I've also had an NDE, also been carrying a spiritual encounter since I was 3. Now, and then also spirits visiting after death, I feel like it's right here with us.
I really like that explanation. And I think there, like, it just rings truth to me when we can agree that, yeah, like, as I said about the dimension, it didn't feel like I was jumping from one to another. It was just more layers stacked upon each other. Um, so like you said, we are here, we're not jumping into the 5D, but yes, like, either it is that we are changing the frequency or we just have more bandwidth. And I think in the end of the day, what is the core is our awareness, right? It's a consciousness that is the most important thing. And then obviously, frequency and energy, it surrounds consciousness. But yeah, I really like where you're going with that, with the being here.
Sometimes it's actually very difficult sometimes to speak of it because it feels like I don't have the exact words. Like I can see it and feel it in my head, but I can't bring it to words. It's so strange sometimes. But yeah, that's why I'm so drawn to these stories. Like I'm so drawn to people like yourself. I find it extremely fascinating. So, one thing I also loved about your story is that you spoke of the overwhelming unconditional love that you encountered. And you encountered that in the sixth dimension, right? May I ask, who was giving that love? Who was omitting that love, if anybody?
I think love will feel different to different people, and also at different stages of their lives. I can tell you that there in the sixth dimension, I think truth was what just it just blew everything else. And like I said, it was like the first time I saw myself for who I was. I saw everyone else for who they were, and everyone was made of light. Like, there was no darkness. There was no one tainted, and everything was so interconnected. And that is not how I viewed Earth and life before the NDE. And so I think for me, truth and clarity that was the love for me, first and foremost. Yeah.
What guidance would you give to someone that feels lost and disconnected from their purpose?
I would like to say that in the sixth dimension, I saw you, I saw you, I saw you, everyone. And honest to God, if we see ourselves for who we really are, it's pure light. You are so beautiful, and you are loved, and you are worthy. And I truly want to say that I, many times in my life, I felt insignificant. I felt like nobody cared. I felt like I've made mistakes in my life. I've made bad choices, and but I can guarantee you that whatever it was there, I don't have a word for that. You can call it God. You can call it the algorithm. You can call it, I like to say also this word, prediction control machine. It cares about you. It absolutely cares about you, and it wants you to win. It will do whatever it takes for you to have the experiences that you came here to have. And it did that for me. And I believe that somehow we will all find our own way to that. But that is guaranteed, that every single human being on earth will have the experiences that they agreed to coming here to have.
Do you fear death now?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think fearing life maybe it's one of those things that we struggle with more than fearing death. I think death is just exiting. Death is coming home. So yeah, from now on, I'm changing that word. It's just I'm exiting. I'm coming home for sure.
I wonder, I talked to many guests about that, and imagine if they actually changed the wording, changed how we were taught what death was, and if they taught it differently, even stopped wearing black, like making it feel like fear, because that's what I used to feel, is that it was something to fear. It was the unknown. You don't know, but there's so many people, out there experience different parts of death, obviously in their own way and what resonates with them, but it doesn't seem like really any of it's scary. Half the time, people don't even feel it.
Yes. And like I said, it's a place of no physical pain, and the amount of amazing things that you are going to see, it's gonna blow your mind. So, you know, it on one hand, yes, it is the unknown. So we shouldn't be way too excited for that. And I mean by that is that, obviously there are people who are just super excited for that. And it's almost even like a little bit like chasing that state of, I want to go to the other side. I don't want to be here on Earth. On the other hand, there are a lot of people that fear the unknown. Um, but yeah, I think in both cases, I think there's something beautiful in not knowing. And though, whatever happened to me, it was a blessing, but I do not know everything. Like there's still things that I do not know that I do not know. And I'm okay with that. So I hope that we can all be okay with not knowing what we don't know.
If people listening today only remember one thing from your story, what would you hope that one thing would be?
You are a light being. You are loved. And no matter how hard things get, just remember you will get there. We will all get there. I am the prime example for that.
You're absolutely right on that. Absolutely. Now, Van, for those who would like to know more about know more about you, about your work, about your services, your projects, socials, your website, where can they connect and find you?
So it's very simple. I only have two things. I write on Substack, and then I have a YouTube channel. And like I said, it has been 4 years since the NDE, and this is the first time that I'm feeling like I'm ready. I'm ready to whatever is coming. So if you are interested in, let's say, bits and pieces of information, wisdom, and all of that I got from my NDE, I highly recommend you to go to my Substack. And I will also do new content on YouTube, and it's all under the same handle. It's one only Van altogether. I know that there's a lot of fear with what's going on right now on Earth. I'm very aware of that, and me too. I'm a human, so I'm part of all of this. I can feel it, I can see it, I can hear it. The future is bright. That's my outlook. That was shown to me. But I also know that in order for us to achieve that positive future, we have to be and we have to take action towards that. So whatever, like, reach deep inside your soul, and whatever you feel like you have to do and the action that you have to take, please do so. Because love and light and positivity sure is going to come, but it will not come without you.
Beautifully said. Van, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your story that you carried so quietly for so many years. Whatever someone's beliefs may be, your willingness to speak openly about such a deeply personal experience invites people to ask bigger questions in their life about consciousness, purpose, and what may exist beyond this world. So thank you for bringing your light, your love, your truth here to the returned today.
I want to thank you, MJ, for this opportunity. It was amazing to talk to you and share my story with you all.
Thank you. And to all those listening or watching, if there is one takeaway from Van's story, perhaps it is this: life may be far bigger than what we can see, and some of the most profound truths arrive through experiences we never would have chosen. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.